John Oliver went on, I think, the New York Times podcast to talk about what he'd learned in making Last Week Tonight. I thought it would be good, and Poggers. And I like John Oliver a lot. I think he is the best we get to actually exposing the actual problems that exist in the United States in like detail.
So you don't have to wear headphones. Personally, I just don't like the nerdy big cans on my head podcast look. So
it's literally just that superficial.
It is just that superficial. That is why we're not doing it. I am vain.
Hello. It is a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
You just walked through the halls of the New York Times. This is your first time here, right?
It is my first time in this building. Yes, I saw the red staircase, and that really is the main thing, isn't it, that you think of when you walk through this building. It's empty right now, though. We're here quite early.
We are
so
here
it's
quite
less
early.
bustling than you would want a cartoon newsroom to be.
I will take that under advisement. It usually is busy. We are busy here normally.
This is not an accusation of there's basically nothing happening here at the New York Times.
Never,
As
never.
it happens, if you were looking for people throwing balled up pieces of paper at each other and yelling about deadlines, that was not my experience.
Not your experience. Not yet.
No.
Not yet. We are in this very contentious political moment. And one of the things that I noticed was that you have said you've never wanted to cover a debate on your show.
Yes.
Is that still true, even though President Biden had this unbelievable debate in June that caused the race to upend itself, and the most recent debate with Kamala Harris and Trump, I mean, they've been pretty consequential.
Yes, I guess the Biden-Trump debate was pretty consequential because Biden isn't the nominee anymore, so it'd be hard to push back on that. I guess it's very hard to say how consequential it is in real time, isn't it? That's the problem. It can feel very consequential, but you just don't know. And so I don't know what we could add to the commentary on those debates that isn't widely available everywhere else. It feels like to a certain extent, our show has moved into an area where we are very much slow cooking. And so there's not much there for us. Also, those debates tend to be pretty uninspiring to me. As a form of entertainment, you could definitely be entertained by what happened. But, what they actually mean, I don't know yet.
Right.
And however much better it felt to watch it, it is pretty depressing that it's this close. That's, I guess, my aftertaste from it. That it's still this close when everyone can see what you can see in that debate. It's hard not to find that somewhere between depressing, infuriating, and outrageous.
Last Week Tonight has been on the air for 10 years.
Yeah.
And that maps pretty neatly onto the Trump era.
You sounded like you were about to sigh then. It's been on for 10 years.
No, that's not what I was doing. Let me be clear. But when you look back, what are the biggest ways that you think the show has changed?
So when we first began, we were doing our main story in 1 week. Then it became clear that was a crazy thing to do. It was a terrible way to set it up because we would come up with the idea for a story, start writing. 3 days later, researcher would come in and would wipe away everything that we just written. So now you're trying to write the show in 2 days, and that's not a good idea. So now the answer to how our show's changed is that we write those main stories in 6 weeks. So we're writing 6 stories at one time. So that doesn't really relate to Trump's role in the last 10 years, but in terms of the development of our show, that is the most critical part of it.
It's funny, going back to the first season as a viewer, I found it to be remarkably similar. No,
Oh,
I
really?
mean, yeah, there's a consistency there. I mean it as a compliment.
Okay,
There's
I was literally wincing both
I saw you
inside and
wincing.
outside. Yeah.
You did this face like, what is she going to say?
John Oliver once made a blammo joke. I feel like he has Hassan Abi heads working for him 100%. 100% has to. And yeah, I get why they don't talk about the debates. It's because it's like there are already so many other important things to talk about that there isn't really a need to talk about the debates, and there isn't that much to say about the debates. I mean, generally speaking, if you weren't convinced by the debate, what's the chance that you're going to get convinced by commentary of the debate? The debate kind of already speaks for itself. But man, I find them entertaining as fuck, and that's why I watch them. But I also understand the perspective that it's depressing as shit. That you could have one guy that's senile as shit, not talking about anything related to the question, talking about people eating cats and dogs, and that you're still like, I'm going to vote for that guy. That's crazy.
I don't do many interviews about myself, so I am kind of emotionally in a defensive position.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I think it's translating to my face.
Because I every time I say something, just your face looks like you're absolutely, you know, having a very, very difficult bowel movement. And so I'm sorry.
Wow.
Let me start again.
Yeah.
All right. You know, there is a consistency there. And it does seem like you understood what you were up to quite early on.
I think we learned some big lessons early on because I guess one of them would be, we did one story called Prisons, and it was about 16 minutes, and that seemed like a long time at the time. And I think what we gradually learned was it is crazy to try and talk about all the problems with prisons in 16 minutes, especially if 2 of those minutes are going to be a song with Sesame Street characters at the end. So since then, we've basically come back and redone that story in 20 different ways, because we've talked about prison labor, prison phone calls, prison recidivism, prison reentry. Like it's, there are so many different aspects to criminal justice that you can't just slap prisons on it and say, oh, we've done it now. It was, in hindsight, I look back at that and do slightly wince, thinking, oh man, we're moving really fast through some incredibly complicated aspects of this problem that deserve a lot more attention than we're giving it.
You know, you obviously say you don't do journalism.
Yeah.
I do see you as a sort of opinion columnist, though. I mean, it does seem like an extended, very pointed, very deliberate crafting of an argument that you want people to understand. Does that resonate for you?
Maybe. I mean, I think certainly by the end of the story, like the last few minutes of the story is opinion, right? That is so, right. Whenever we're saying, so what can we do? Everything after that probably is an opinion because people will feel differently about that. Everything up to that point is what it is. Like we've so rigorously fact and legal checked everything up to that point. There's no real opinion or wiggle room in that.
Well, I mean, opinion columnists also get fact checked.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what I'm getting at, though, is not that facts are mutable, but you can choose the kinds of arguments that one puts forward, right? And so you're crafting a narrative about certain issues.
I guess centrally we work really hard to make sure that we do incredibly rigorous fact checking, both because we want it to be right and if we're talking about companies, just basic self-preservation, right? You don't want.
How big is your fact checking team?
Oh, I mean, we have 6 senior researchers, 6 junior researchers, and a whole bunch of lawyers. So yeah,
wow.
a lot. So yeah, it's very, very important to us. I guess that's why I'm instinctively pushing back a little bit on this is. I'm not saying you said it like this, but this is just opinion. That's of course you're right that how we feel about a story is probably present in terms of how we research it, but I really can't stress enough how much work goes into making sure that we are totally right on the facts. Like, if you're going to work this hard, we're going to put our researchers through this. We're going to, for 6 weeks, looking at sometimes incredibly dour stories. If you're going to ask writers to write jokes with sometimes incredibly bleak material, you want to make sure that stands up to scrutiny. That would be too depressing to make mistakes there.
Talk to me about the process. Who comes up with the ideas?
Everybody can pitch stories. That's everyone on staff can pitch stories in our email channel, and then we'll give it to a researcher to say, is there something here? Like, has this story shifted in any way? Is now a good time to tell this story? They'll go away for 2 or 3 days, come back with a broad answer, On that, if we feel like it's worth going forward, we'll add a footage producer to that story to check whether there's any footage to go with it, whether there's something that we can show to tell the story. And then they will write packets over the next couple of weeks. There'll be like a 400-page footage packet, normally a 100-page research packet. The writers will have been following along with some of those meetings. Then they will take those packets away for a week, write outlines, jokeless outlines. Then we will combine those outlines. Then we will send them away to write a draft. That'll be another week. Then it'll be the production week.
And is it you that's deciding the topics?
Myself and Tim Carvell, we run the show together. Tim was at The Daily Show with me.
Yeah. And what are the ones that appeal to you the most?
That's a good question. I guess, what was there? God, I'm blanking. There was a story that we did recently that had Tim and I bouncing in our chairs a little bit and walking away
Hospice
from it.
care, Hawaii, RFK.
Why are you going to hit me with hospice care? I don't know. Hospice care was interesting, but I don't know that it was that. I don't know. I guess in general it would be ones that feel really challenging, that it feels like we can bring something to with, directing this machine that we built, directing them at a complicated, perhaps superficially unappealing story and getting something palatable and fun out of it. Either that, or I guess the really honest answer is something very, very dumb.
So you have these heavy subjects. And the two ways that I see in your show that you use comedy is either taking something that has absolutely nothing to do with the subject at hand and just putting in something completely absurd to lighten it, to give it levity, to just have it be a kind of mood breaker.
Yes.
Or using things that are very much to do with the issue at hand, but are funny in and of themselves because people have said absurd things or they've done things that are just kind of crazy.
As someone who's done some level of research on different topics that I've talked about, I will say it takes way longer than you think it would. And even harder than that is presenting the information in a way that anyone can digest, especially very difficult concepts, because they'll talk about like one issue, but that issue has like 10 different smaller issues in it. And the amount of time it takes to procure evidence of these things is way longer than you would expect. So, for example, everyone here who has ever experienced an HOA knows about all the dog shit that comes with HOAs, right? And this isn't even talking about the comedy aspect of it. And if you're trying to convince someone who's never lived in an HOA that HOAs suck, you can give them a bunch of anecdotes, but then they'll be like, well, maybe that was just your experience or whatever, right? Or they'll be like, well, I don't know, has it happened to anyone else? Are you sure you weren't just following the rules and it's your fault, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, everyone in the United States agrees HOAs suck, but let's just pretend like there's a subset of the population that doesn't believe HOAs suck. Now you have to go online and scour the internet for good, solid examples of people who were wronged by their HOAs. You'll find lots of mediocre examples of like someone got like a small ticket for this or someone got a small ticket for that, but that's not enough to convince someone who's on the other side of the spectrum, right? So you have to find solid examples of like this older woman who's barely affording to pay her bills, who put out some garden gnomes, no warning, immediately got ticketed for $1,000, which is almost the amount of money that she pays on her mortgage. And she literally can't afford it. Because that's an example that is, I'm pretty sure it shows up in the one that John Oliver made on HOAs. And that's an example that no one will agree with, right? Or an example of someone losing their house over their the trees being a little too tall, or they had the wrong shrubbery in their yard, and therefore they now are getting an eviction notice. It's hard to defend that. You have to choose the best examples. You have to choose ideally more than one example, but less than 3 examples, and it has to be concise. Right? It's the same thing. It's the wrong shade of brown paint on their homes. Yeah. So that when you show it to someone, there's no retort that they can make. They can't say, well, whatever, it's not a big deal. They can't say, oh, well, maybe she should have just followed the rules, or, well, that was her fault for trying to paint the house electric blue, right? It should be something that is so minor that no one would think it would be finable, and that someone should never lose their house over it, right? What's an HOA as a European? I have no idea. It's a homeowners association. That's what it stands for. Basically, homes will be in these sections, almost like at the very least, everywhere that I've lived, every house I've ever seen is in an HOA. So all the homes have to follow HOA rules. So let's say you have like 100 homes in this like area, this plot of land. All of these people in an ideal world, okay? All of these people come together and they agree, can we all agree like no music after 11 p.m., like no loud partying after 11 p.m. and like, can we make sure that we're not like going 30 miles an hour in the driveways? And is there any other? Can we please make sure that like dogs are not shitting and pissing all over our yards? And everybody comes together. This is an ideal world, okay? This is what HOAs are supposed to mean. And everybody comes together and they're like, yeah, that's fair policies. I don't want dog shit on my front yard when I don't have a dog. And, I also want to be able to fall asleep on Monday through Thursday when I have work the next day. So maybe no partying after that time, okay? And everyone's like, yeah, those are fair rules. Great. We all agree to do this, and we'll put someone in that will be in charge of the HOA manager, and they will go and put notices on people's doors. And if you insist on violating the rules and every single night you're throwing fucking parties and none of your neighbors can sleep because you refuse to fucking turn your music down, you'll get a fine. And then eventually you'll have enough fines that you have to move out. In an ideal world, an HOA makes sense. You don't want people coming in and disturbing your neighborhood where all of you are just trying to like enjoy yourselves, right? Like I know for myself, I have had neighbors playing the fucking tuba. I'm not joking. The tuba at like 2 a.m. And I'm like, I just want to sleep. I just want to sleep. Why are you playing the tuba at 2 a.m? I just want to sleep.
All HOA are crap.
So I think in an ideal world, it makes sense. I mean, think about it like a commune. In an ideal world, everyone would come together and be like, hey, totally cool if you want to throw some parties on the weekends, but maybe on work days, on work nights, we don't throw really loud parties out of courtesy for everybody else. The problem is, much like everything else in the United States, it's been destroyed by capitalism, and HOAs now are just a way to like milk you for as much money as possible. So you end up paying like on top of your mortgage or on top of whatever fees, your bills and everything else, you pay an additional, depending on where you live, anywhere from like $100 to $500 a month. You wanted to paint your house a different shade of tan? Everybody else's heists are this specific shade of tan, and you wanted to go up in saturation by 1? That'll be a $1,000 fine, and you need to change the paint within the week. Oh, your lawn? I noticed you planted some flowers. That's against HOA policy. You have to remove all of those flowers. I noticed your lawn also had some garden gnomes. We think they're really ugly, so here's another $100 fine. It's just, how do we make your life as inconvenient as possible? And now everyone is so used to HOAs that there's nothing you can do, and HOAs are everywhere. And it's like, it feels, at the very least where I've lived, I've never seen a house. I mean, everybody does this, right? You go on Zillow.com and you look at all the heists you can't afford and you're like, oh, this one's so nice. Oh my God, a master bathroom. Wow. Like all this space. All of them were in HOAs. Every single one had an HOA fee. Every single one. Noel Valu, thank you so much for the Prime. Thank you. You agree to the HOA when you buy the property? I mean, yeah, the way that you like agree to the terms of service when you sign up for like Netflix or whatever, right? It's kind of, there is no alternative if there are no houses in your neighborhood that don't require you to have an HOA. Didn't Drake have to pay $100K for planting some trees in his HOA from his HOA? I don't know. I only know Drake by Kendrick's music, okay? HOAs are nothing other than forced conformity and racism. I mean, at this point, yes. At this point, 100% I agree with you. Nacho Dog, thank you so much for the Prime. Thank you. Wide People Dini, oh, thank you so much for the 5 gift subs. Thank you. Well, technically 6 because Twitch added one. But anywho, Anywho. What was I talking about? Right. So if you're building a story about HOAs, you have to find egregious examples where people are just being like abused by their HOAs. They're getting charged so many fines for bullshit. Like no reasonable person would ever look at that person's yard and be like, I don't like those flowers. You deserve to pay $1,000. And if you can't pay those $1,000, you deserve to get evicted. That's insane. That is an insane thing to say. Grandma wanted to plant a few flowers, so now she has to be evicted? That's insane. That is an insane thing. Whereas like someone getting evicted because they insisted on playing the tuba at 2 a.m. for a month straight, okay, a little bit more reasonable considering that's impacting everyone's quality of life and ability to sleep at night. Okay? I think that one may be a little bit more fair. Okay? Maybe just a tiny bit more fair. All right? I would have a problem with someone doing that, just like I did have a problem with someone doing that. However, I don't care if grandma wants to plant some petunias. They're in her yard. She should be able to do. How are they impacting me? In my last property, if you didn't mow your lawn, the HOA could eventually take custody of your entire property. Yeah, Nacho Dog. Somebody else said the same thing as well. When you rack up enough fines, the HOA can buy your house from under you for literal pennies. Yes. Yes. So you have to come up with so if you're researching a story on HOAs and you're talking to Europeans who don't know what HOAs are, or I don't know, do Canadians have HOAs? Probably. Or just people who maybe like HOAs, that person doesn't exist in the United States, but let's just pretend like they exist. You have to come up with all of this proof on how they're bad, real examples of how they've negatively impacted people, and alternatives to the solution. And that takes way longer that information takes way longer to procure than just telling people, no, they suck, trust me. I think ours is called strata in Canada, or at least here on the West. Your neighbor shouldn't be able to evict you because you painted your house hot pink. That's crazy. I mean, I think that I don't think you should be evicted for any visual things other than maybe like hate symbols. Hate symbols, yeah, honestly, I don't want like a Nazi living in my neighborhood. And like, if you're gonna live in my neighborhood because I can't stop you from buying the house like 2 stories over, I don't want to see a swastika when I have to get out or into my house. I think that one's fair. You should be able to paint your house whatever color you want. Okay? You should be able to put up lights if you want to put up lights. You should be able to do whatever you want to do. I draw the line at loud noises past a certain time because I'm an old lady. 11 p.m. is like, I think that's a fair time. I'm sure many people in here are like 10 or something. Other than that, it's in your house. It's on your property. It's your space. You do whatever you want with it. Plant as many flowers as you want, dude. Fucking put up as many paint colors as you want. It can be as ugly as you want. It's your house. Anyways, shall we?
Is that the kind of stuff that you're looking for, the material that you're looking for after you've done the bones of, this kind of big endeavor?
You mean once we've got the outlines
of the story itself?
Yes, definitely. That is the challenge for the writers. And it's a really hard challenge, but it's a really satisfying one as well. And we try our best to put the writers in a position where they can succeed. But I think we've got better at that over the years. In the past, we would sometimes be handing them stuff that is so dry and so bleak. They justifiably would be sitting there going, what do you want me to do with this? Like, this is a horrendous episode of like a comedic Chopped. I can't give you a cake out of these ingredients. So now we try and like troubleshoot that on the way in so that they have stuff which is enough stuff which is light and funny enough that they can attack the material more directly so that you vary the jokes. When it comes to pacing out the clips of the show, that is something that we look at constantly, but I guess the first time that we really reckon with it is when we get the writer's outlines and we combine them. Because then we're literally putting the story up on flashcards so that you can see
hi.
it. And this is going to sound ridiculous, but we literally have like a blue star sticker that we stick on a clip that's really sad, and red stars on ones that are very funny. And so you want to make sure that you, in terms of a blue star, really sad clip, you don't want many of those, because those are really hard to write any joke off without it feeling incredibly glib. What you want is as many red star clips as you can. That's the challenge for the footage producers. So it's a hugely collaborative process. And at its best, it should be better than the sum of all of our parts.
And how much does your view of the topic change over the course of the story? I mean, does the process confirm, strengthen, your thinking, or does it challenge it?
Oh, it can definitely shift it. You can go, I mean, I guess one of the slightly dispiriting patterns you can find in researching these stories is some of the data that is most commonly passed around by activists can collapse. There is some real, as I'm sure you know, garbage data passed around where it feels like, well, you've inflated this by 15% and it really did not need to be. There's a perfectly usable stat that's slightly less than what you're saying, which you can actually stand on, rather than this one, which is just nothing. That can be pretty annoying when...
I really have to pee. I got to go piss, Karl. I'm sorry. Stuff, thank you for the 6 months. Rodeo, thank you so much for the 15 months. I'm still listening. I have my earbud in.
Foundational stats collapse under relatively minor scrutiny. But things are generally, with some of these systemic problems, worse than you thought when you start looking at them. It's relatively common that at some point in the story process that we've just talked about, I'll walk into Tim Carvell's office and we'll look at each other after we've just learned a certain part of a story and say, burn it down, burn everything down to the ground.
You feel rage.
Yeah, because things are so much worse than you thought they were, and you thought they were pretty bad. Then you have to work through that, right? Because nihilism is completely useless. That's the coward's way out. So you work through that, and I have found, generally, with these stories, that the light at the end of the tunnel, albeit that light might be smaller than you would like it to be ideally, is that there are...
I don't know if he talked about it in any one of his prison episodes, but the best example of this, as like things are worse than you think, is the fact that people in prison in all but like I think 2 states actually pay to stay in prison. So when you leave prison and you've done your time for like having a joint on you, you have to pay back all of the debt that you accumulated from staying at the prison. Wait, what? Yeah. There's the most egregious case was I forget the state, but a woman who got imprisoned for I think it was like petty theft or something. She had to pay back, I think like somewhere between $40,000 and $80,000 because the prison was charging her $250 a night to stay there. She was paying hotel prices to stay in a shithole. It's pay to stay laws. Here we go. This is, I think, one of the more egregious instances. Here it is. It was actually, I said 40 to 80. It was actually $83,000 in the state of Connecticut. She owed $83,000 to cover the cost of her 2.5-year imprisonment for drug crimes. I'm about to be homeless because they put a lien on her house to pay back the $83,000. She said that the state law charges prisoners $249 a day for the cost of their incarceration. I just don't think it's right because I feel like I already paid my debt to society. I don't think it's fair for me to be paying twice. Luckily, in a lot of states, this is getting overhauled and removed. Connecticut overhauled its statute this year, keeping it only in place for the most serious crimes such as murder and exempting prisoners from having to pay the first $50,000 of their incarceration costs, which in my opinion is good. It's insane that you ever can call a prison system rehabilitative when like you went to prison because you had a joint on you and now you have to pay back more money than you know like where to get and for why. And you know the stay doesn't cost $250 a night. That's like paying the fucking guards. That's what that is. That's what that salary is. I mean, everyone in here has seen what prisons in America look like. They're like total shitholes. We know that prison ruins your job prospects, but money, please. Also, like the double whammy that once you're a felon, I don't know if this specific woman, I think she was a felon, but once you're a felon, getting a job is like 10 times harder. And even though we know that getting a job as a felon is impossible, you also somehow have to procure $80,000 for having stayed in our prison. Don't worry, you can work it off by making license plates for 23 cents an hour. Yeah, it's just slavery with extra steps. This is what people call imprisonment slavery, modern day slavery. But like, if prison wasn't bad enough already, there are prisons in the United States right now where people have...
Got sent to jail for stealing a Snickers bar the third time? Just rob a bank to pay your jail bill.
Poggers.
Easy.
There are people in the United States that have died in prisons from violence because we don't protect our inmates, and also from... I think the worst, most egregious case was the guy who... I think he died of starvation, and he was getting, like, eaten by the bugs and vermin in the prison when they found him. Like, if that's not bad enough, don't worry. There's more. There's more, dude. They also don't pay you a fair wage when you're in there. They also treat you like garbage. You also get no entertainment and are in unsafe conditions. You also have no privacy at all. Like, we strip you of all of your humanity. The guards are allowed to do whatever the fuck they want to you. This isn't even covering what trans women have to go through in prisons. And when you get out, you will never be able to find a good job because you are now a registered felon, and you have to pay us tens of thousands of dollars of debt. It's like, what the fuck?
Here, even when the vibes is rough.
Oh, and you can't vote. In what world? In what world is this fair? In what world is this fair? One of these wasn't bad enough. We had to do all of them. We had to do all of them. And here's the thing, man. Okay, I understand how people get to the mentality of like, yeah, well, piece of shit rapists and murderers deserve it. And it's like, hold up for just 1 second, okay? Let's just pretend like that's true, okay? What about all the people that are in there for nonviolent crimes? Because there's a lot of people in there for nonviolent crimes. What about all of those people? I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry, but like the fact that anyone has served any time at all for having a normal amount of weed on them is crazy. It's crazy. Insane. Insane, dude. Sundance, thank you so much for the 12 months. Shuni, thank you so much for the Prime. Thank you. I mean, the way that our current system treats like drugs, even like the fact that there are people who have like heroin addictions or meth addictions or whatever, any type of drug addiction, and we don't immediately send them to rehab, and instead we throw them in prison. You're really helping them out, dude. You're really fixing society. I'm sure when they get out, they really they'll get their life together now that they're a registered felon with tens of thousands of dollars to pay back to the state. Yeah, for sure. Anyways, the story gets worse as you learn more about it. But clubs, thank you for the 11 months.
Activists making small incremental progress on the ground, and that progress is really, really important.
How do you not give in to the nihilism? Because you delve into these very disturbing, bleak, some would say almost dystopian topics. and
Just classic
you're still,
comedy show fodder.
Yeah. And I mean, you're still angry and going into, your colleague's office and feeling furious.
How would you not be, though? Unless you're a sociopath. Yeah, I don't know how you wouldn't be. I mean, the thing that's exciting about the show is that we have these resources, right? In a time when expertise has been absolutely put through a sausage grinder. We are very, very fortunate to have researchers who have access to great experts in a field, whatever that field may be, from criminal justice to deep sea mining. They will talk to us to make sure that we get something right. And it is such a privilege to be able to find something interesting and then send a researcher away to talk to great experts in the field to get an answer. It's having a machine for your own curiosity that is like the internet, but it brings back reliable results.
Do you know what else it's like?
What?
Journalism.
Well, let me say, like with the journalism tag, 'cause it's a little tricky, right? I am not a journalist. I did not train as a journalist. We do have journalists working for our show. A lot of them.
I'm glad someone's hiring journalists.
Unfortunately, it might just be us. So yes, I am not a journalist, but they are, for sure.
But don't you think like saying that you're not a journalist or not acting as a journalist allows you to elide some of the accountability of journalism, right?
That's interesting. I really hope that we don't elide that responsibility. I both don't think I'm a journalist because I really think I am not. I could send my researchers away for 6 weeks and I think they'll come back saying, yeah, you're not. But in terms of the responsibilities of journalism, we do have intense fact-checking because we want it to be right. I mean, again, our stories, those big stories are aggregations of incredible journalism. So it cannot function without journalism. Now, we recheck it to make sure it's accurate or that it hasn't changed, but we're building this to make jokes. It's just we want the foundations to be solid or those jokes fall apart. Those jokes have no structural integrity if the facts underneath them are bullshit. So that's what's important.
It's funny because it's true, sort of thing.
Well, it's only funny if it's true.
Right.
Yeah. And so it has to be true for it to be funny.
But I guess the why is, are you trying to make the world a better place? Are you trying to... No, but I mean, really, what is the big driving force here? Because some people would say, I just want to make people laugh and entertain them. Some people would say, yeah, I want people to think about something and maybe have a nice conversation over dinner with their husband. You seem to have a much bigger aim here.
I will say the most important thing to me and to lots of people at the show is to do this in service of writing really funny, weird jokes about interesting things. So that is our outcome. It's not necessarily to make the world a better place.
He makes it easier for me to make systemic and anti-capitalist arguments. Sigh.
Why sigh?
Not sure that comedy can do that. To a certain extent, sometimes it's fiddling while Rome burns. But I think what we want is to get the best ingredients that we can to write comedy from. That's the really honest answer. It's the thing I love the most in the world. I love writing comedy so much. It's just, it feels like this is the best process through which we can write interesting, fun, surprising jokes.
It seems to have made you uncomfortable that I've accused you of trying to make the world a better place.
I guess the problem, I mean, this might be a hang-up of being British, British people took a real stab at, if not making the world a better place, making it a more British place, and it didn't go too well. So, yeah, you don't want me involved in that.
I feel such a kinship with this mentality um, with John Oliver. I don't know when it'll come out, but I did an interview at TwitchCon about the Twitch politics sphere and about sort of Gamergate 2 and all that other stuff. And I'll let you guys know when it comes out. But sort of the same idea where I'm not a journalist. I'm definitely not a journalist. 100%. I think he's much closer to a journalist than I can pretend to be, because my research is like, I try to find the best information that I can online. I don't directly go out in the world and interact with people and find firsthand information. I try to look at information from trusted sources and verify it with other trusted sources, right? And then I show you guys all of that stuff. And I also think that content creators especially are so prone to becoming insane. They're so prone to becoming very ego-driven and believing themselves, especially in the politics sphere, believing themselves to be the arbiters of justice. They get some Delulu syndrome for sure, yeah. And you get so full of yourself because you have an audience that will, hang off of every sentence, every word you say, and you start to think that there's nothing you can do that's wrong. Perfect examples like Ethan Klein. Like, that is someone who he has just been huffing his own farts for so long, and he has so many sycophants that love him so much that it's over for him, right? It's totally over for him. And I need to stay as far away from that as possible. Okay, I need to be like, luckily I have anxiety, so it shouldn't happen, but I need to be as far away from that as possible. It's why I love keeping people around who just make fun of me in chat. I think it's very funny. It's also why I don't take myself too seriously, and I don't take my role on the internet too seriously. Because as far as I'm concerned, I get on and I talk about funny stuff, and you guys enjoy the funny stuff or don't enjoy it, and then we move on. As a former H3 sub, I can confirm, yeah. And I've talked about it before, like, I want to be wrong, because you will not get better positions without being wrong. You have to be wrong, recognize that you're wrong, and then get better positions, right? And you're going to be wrong. Everybody's wrong. Historically, it has never happened that somebody has never been wrong in their life ever. It's never happened, except Twitch chat. But obviously everybody already knows that. So I accept that it's going to happen. And I accept that I will become more reliable as a source for information when I get to just admit when I'm wrong. And, I reported on this thing and I now know this new information. Oh, okay. I rescind my earlier statements. I want everyone to know this and this and this or whatever. What do you consider to be your biggest blunder? I don't know if I have a big one, to be honest. Like a serious one. I don't know if I have a serious one. I guess like 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't know that you're not supposed to say. I guess I just didn't put 2 and 2 together. I didn't know that the term Mongo was derivative of, or like Mongoloid was derivative of the like Mongolian people. I didn't know that. I thought that those were 2 separate. It hadn't even crossed my mind that those were in line in the same category, that those were about those things. And I was like, oh, that's what that refers to? Okay, I'll stop saying it. Which I think is like simple, but a lot of people struggle with it for some reason. I don't understand why. I don't get it. Me either. I was using it as insult before. Yeah, I was using it the way that you describe or you call people troglodytes, right? I didn't know that that was ripped from Mongolian people. Oh shit, I didn't know that? Yeah, we're all learning, dude. But like, session. I don't know if I've had any like major ones yet. Yeah, or like that the term gypsy, from that term, which gypsy on its own is like, but saying that someone gypped you, that's like offensive to Romani people. It's like, oh, right. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't even know that those were connected at all. I didn't know that was connected at all. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll stop saying that. I'll just go back to saying like scammed or like robbed or whatever. Used to be a vaguely pejorative term for people suffering from trisomy 21. Took me watching House to learn that, really. But anyways, the cat I got was named the G word, and we renamed her Jasper. Oh, that's a good rename. That's a good rename. But anyways, there's an entire Netflix show called Gypsy. I have no idea how that name got greenlit. I mean, dude, the Redskins were around for how long? I mean, the fucking Aunt Jemima was in existence for how long? Like, and it's so normal. Like, because I mean, I grew up seeing the Aunt Jemima bottle, so I'm like, I look at it, I don't even see, it doesn't even seem bizarre to me. But that's what happens when you're exposed to crazy shit when you're really young and everybody's normal about it. And then eventually you think about it more and you're like, that is kind of weird, actually, that we have that on syrup bottles. We really should change that. I don't even feel like personally attacked by it, obviously. But man, that's bad, huh? We should change that. We really should change that. It's not good. It'll happen to the laughing cow next. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there have been, I've had like personal blunders. Like I've gotten a lot better about becoming less clippable. Like I've had sentences that I've said. Not the hit one. That one was just funny, okay? Unless you're a grifter. Everybody knew that one was a joke. I mean, Twitch knew it was a joke. That's why I'm not banned. But I've had like a lot of moments where I've said something in the context of like, this is ridiculous for this person to say this, but it sounds like I'm saying that this thing is ridiculous. And I've had a lot of those moments. So I've tried to like curb those. Sorry. C word moment. Yeah. Yeah. It's been around so long, you don't even think about how it's racist. Yeah. Trying to explain a racist thing without coming off as racist, impossible. Yeah. Chocolate-covered marshmallows have insane names in every country. Dude, I learned about this recently. I didn't know this. I didn't know this. I didn't know this at all, but Anywho. I think for me personally, I've had like a bad time with like phrasing things, and my phrasing has been poor. That I think the idea behind it is fine, but the phrasing has been bad. And that's still important too. I mean, that's why Chapel Roan is under so much flack right now. It's just because her phrasing was poor. That you kind of never want to say the term both sides because it signals to liberals that like you're a conservative, if that makes a little bit more sense. And that's like, those are words that you need to make sure never leave your lips ever. But that's like more of a media training thing. But anywho. Going back to the video.
Your segments now go on YouTube after they air on Sundays.
Yes.
But this season, for the first time, HBO is delaying putting the episodes on YouTube by 4 days.
Yes.
I assume this is to encourage people to subscribe?
I assume that too, yes.
To Max, the streaming service.
Yeah.
I take that that's frustrating to you.
Yeah, it's huge. It's massively frustrating to me. I was not happy with it at all. I certainly can make the same assumption that you do, which is that they want to make sure that people watch it. I would prefer people watch the show in its entire form when it goes out. This is partly self-serving, not just that I would like my employer to be happy, but we do take a lot of effort to make sure that the show makes sense as a whole, so that if we're doing a really bleak main story, we like putting real dumb stuff around it. Like when we did Death Penalty Drugs, the pentobarbital, pretty bleak story. We made sure that we had a story after that about a stock photo model that we managed to fly in from Azerbaijan. I like the conflation of those two things. So I would much rather people watched the show all together, because that's how we make it. So I hope that I hope it works, because I worry about it. I worry that I guess it remains to be proven to me that this was necessary.
Are you worried about the method of distribution? I mean, we know that, cable TV, generally speaking, is
sure. Changing a lot.
A lot. And
definitely.
YouTube is obviously exponentially growing, and it's a place where a lot of different types of people come to get their content. So you want everyone to see it in its full entirety, but is it also that it reaches just a different type of person?
Yeah, I think that's what I was. What I love about having the show on YouTube, or the A story, is that we can reach beyond HBO subscribers. I think that feels really important to me. I think it's a good advert for HBO. I think it reflected really well on them, and still does, the fact that they released this main story. I really, really appreciate the fact that they do that. I would rather they did it straight after the show that we've always done it, but I'm very grateful that they are willing to still do it at all, because I do think it's a good advert, not just for our show, but for the network. Because we are very lucky to have a big staff, right? That staff costs money. And so we're lucky to have an employer that will pay the costs of our show, which is small by their standards, by Dragon standards, but, not insignificant.
I mean, do you see your show in the same format that it is, in the same way that it is 10 years from now?
I mean, I hope so, if I'm still alive.
You look healthy. Let me just say.
I'm going to have that statement sent through this building's fact checkers, and I don't think either of us are going to like the answer that comes back. You look healthy. You have to add some qualifying language to that for a 47-year-old man with 2 children who's been through a pandemic recently and a stressful job. Albeit that stressful job isn't that stressful by general standards. I have no idea what the future is of television or of late night. There will be a future, but I don't know what it's going to look like yet. And I have an active interest, for sure, in knowing the answer to that.
Last Week Tonight was renewed for another 3 seasons last year.
Yes.
Meaning it will be on the air till at least 2026.
Yes.
What
Oh, boy.
would make you feel...
Oh, boy. I didn't like the way you said the word "what" there.
Oh, my God.
Do you think you're doing? What do you have planned over the next 5 years? Because I'd take any dream trips right now.
Yes,
you want to visit the Taj Mahal? You should go. You should go now.
I do not think you should go now, but I am curious, what would make you feel done with the show?
That's a good question. I don't know. I guess I worked with Jon Stewart for a long time. I saw him get exhausted. So I know what that looks like. I saw him reckoning with the fact, I don't know if I can do this I've done this in every possible way that I can do it. And he was right about that. Like, you can't really do it any better. I've not hit that point yet. I still absolutely love making the show. I get excited, like, to your point of, like, bouncing up and down in the chairs when we feel like we're onto something with a story, or we've worked out something really dumb to do. It's so fun. Maybe I've made this sound very academic, the way that we make it, the show, but it's so fun.
Man, I feel, I know I just said it earlier, but I feel such a kinship about all of this. I assume most of you have already seen, actually, ones of you read it or watched Caroline's stream when she was reading it, and twos of you haven't. The recent article from Kotaku about um, Caroline Kwan. Oh, so most of you kind of actually haven't. Okay. Well, there was a really good piece talking about basically Twitch, the political landscape, and everything related to that, I guess, issue. And Caroline kind of spoke about it on stream. She read it on her stream. And she talked about how it's really tough to keep on going in the content space sometimes when you do politics, especially if you are femme presenting. Is Caroline the one who does some cooking streams? Yeah, she also does cooking streams. I think she does cooking streams on Sunday usually, but she mixes it up sometimes. And I want to see if I can find what's like Kotaku. It was this article. I wanted to see if I could find. I mean, she talks about a lot of things in here. Like this section, I think is pretty good. Talking about the price of being a woman online. Naturally, our conversation turns towards the pressures of being a woman in such a male-dominated space and the kinds of negative energy she faces just by going live on Twitch. Being a woman online, just simply existing online puts a target on your back, which is why something like AI deepfakes primarily targets women. She says, referencing the Twitch deepfake porn scandal of last year, in which a prominent streamer accidentally revealed he was watching doctored porn featuring his peer's likeness while live. Here's just an example of the misogyny that is at the core of deepfakes. When I tweeted about the scandal, I got a DM and comments saying, "You're next. Will come for you next," Quan explains. Just simply because I said, "This is not right. Do not do this. Women are not consenting to this." Then I had lasers put on me because it's about power. It's about control. That is what the sexual abuse of women is about. And AI deepfakes are digital sexual abuse. So there's a lot there's a lot of good stuff in this article. And I'm trying to see. Here we go. This section, I think, especially. And then streaming comes into the picture and it's live and there's no editing and it's happening in real time. And as attention started to be put on me, I also got the bad attention too. And the bad actors will scrutinize everything. They clip you out of context. They'll be like, "Oh, you're a dumb bitch." It doesn't matter how much care I put into my streams. It doesn't matter how I talk openly. I don't know every single thing. I make mistakes. We all make mistakes. It's what you do when you make a mistake that I think is more illuminating of who you are as a person. Look, I was mentioned people shy. There's not a lot of female streamers to do what like Denims and I do with the majority of our content, and I understand why it's a difficult situation, but I wish more people could speak up, or I wish more women could speak up, because there's power and strength in numbers. You've got every dumb fuck dude out here who will give their opinion on something. Actually, she is inclined as a result. Nick Mertz. And they have these massive audiences, Quan spits. And with women, because of the obstacles we face simply by being online, being public figures, there are a lot of women who have decided to just not give their opinions. And I totally understand it. It sucks. And I have to say a couple things. I think part of it is, oh, hi, Wormy. Sorry, Wormy comes less often than Mayored Cat does. So when she comes, I try to give her love and attention. Hi, Wormy Cat. She's gone. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. I think I'm like gamer brained is the problem. So like when I When I've existed on the internet and I've been online for, oh Christ, at least a decade at this point, playing video games. I mean, I've been playing games since I was like, I've been talking to gamers on the internet since I was 15, probably. And I'm used to a certain level of shit talking. So my brain translates a lot of the negative criticisms that I get as shit talking and banter. And so when I see it, it's like my gamer gene activates. And my first reaction is not to be offended, but to say, yeah, shut up, loser boy. What, you get no pussy in real life, so you're trying to farm some here? Which is great for me for content, right? Because I think the way I see it is like that's an open invitation, you know? And it doesn't help being Arab and growing up in an Arab household where everyone roasts the shit out of everyone else. Like you got to toughen up, Buttercup, okay? You got to be able to throw some jabs, all right? Because you can't just take that shit. You will just get made fun of more for just taking it. So I think I've had a lot of like social development on that front. So when I see that stuff, I don't remember the last time I've seen something and I've taken it personally. I think it's very funny. And I think it's very funny, I guess like the two recent ones that make me crack up every time is people who call me dumb because I'm like, I don't know why it's funny to me, but it is. I think it's funny to me because usually these are people who are fans of like the dumbest people you know. And you go to like check their Twitter or to check their page or whatever, and it's like the biggest diehard XQC fan. It's like you watch XQC 12 hours a day, okay? Okay, I'm just telling you, your brain has definitely lost some chunks. Some of your brain is gone now, okay? So I don't know if I have to respect your opinion, actually. And then the other one that I think is always funny is like when people call me mid. Recently, I saw someone call me below mid, and I just started losing my shit. It was so funny. It was so good. Oh my God. Oh, I couldn't stop laughing. I was laughing for like 10 minutes straight. I'm not even joking. Like straight up like in tears. Oh my God. It was just so good. And it's just like, I think part of it is that part of the shit talking and part of the aspect of shit talking is trying to make the other person genuinely upset. But the second you write something like that, you're the one who's genuinely upset. So you've already kind of lost. So why would I get upset with you, I guess? I don't know. I don't know. Do you guys understand what I'm talking about? Is it the below mid because you play HOTS? I think so. That one is fair, to be honest. That one's fair. But anyways, going back to the Jon Stewart interview, I still love the internet. And I view like I guess like harassment as my brain, I think instinctively views a lot of the harassment as like banter, like internet banter. And I see people who never talk about politics, people who are the biggest sweethearts, people who are super, super nice, and they still get harassed. And if those people are still getting harassed, it was Jover for me from the beginning. Like, I could get on stream and be the nicest person on the planet and never say a single offensive thing and never talk about politics and never talk about diversity or inclusion or DEI or woke or any of these other things. And people would still be mad and still harass me. So I'm going to listen to people whose opinions I respect, and I'm going to change my behavior according to people whose opinions I respect. Not people who spend their free time getting angry at people they don't like on the internet. That seems really stupid. That seems like a bad way to like live my life, right? Like if you were trying to become a master painter or like a sculptor or something, you would go to the painters that you respect and try and learn from them. And if they told you, hey, I think you should do this differently, blah, 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 you would listen to that person because it's someone whose opinion you respect. But if it's some fucking loser on the street who can barely draw a stick figure and is calling your shit bad, why would you ever spend your time listening to that person? You would think that that was ridiculous every time. And this is like, you can apply this in any field. Like, if you were trying to get good at a video game, you would talk to like grandmasters or whatever, right? In that game. If a bronze player walked up to you and was like, oh yeah, your opening is shit, you'd be like, bro, I'm literally a higher MMR than you. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, it's just straight up, like, I'm not listening to you. So why would I listen to like the losers who spend their free time online being mad and sending hate messages? You live worse than me. Why would I take advice from you? Just fundamentally, because you are sending these messages, you live worse than me. And you're telling me, hey, in case you were wondering, your life is better than mine. And I'm supposed to feel bad about that? I can't feel bad about that. That's crazy. You would never feel bad in any of these other examples. Why would I feel bad here? But the fucked up thing is, I think a big part of that is because my brain is super rotted. And for people like Caroline who haven't been on the internet for forever, her brain isn't rotted. Like, she has cared about politics her whole life. I've also cared about politics my whole life, but she spent a lot of time outside being normal, touching grass, and interacting with other people who care about politics outside. I've interacted with a lot of these people online, so I feel like I know them. I know that type of person. So when I see the internet, I see all the positives. It's really hard for me to see the negatives. But I understand that for someone like Caroline, it gets harder, and it's a skill that you learn, especially when you're going from being a like relatively normie to being an internet degen.
A normie cackle cot.
Well, Max, thank you. Thank you for the 13 months. So yeah, I don't know. Did you have any professional political experience? I think the article talks about some of the stuff that she did prior to Twitch streaming and prior to pursuing acting. The political fundraiser turned actor turned Twitch streamer. So yeah, she's been engaged in politics, like real politics, for a very long time. Is it really all that hard to see the negatives? For me, kind of, yeah, a little bit. I sign off when I stop streaming. I'm not online anymore. Like, I'm addicted to my computer. I'm just not addicted to like hate scrolling. And I'm not addicted to like, I'm addicted to video games. I'm addicted to joining my friend's Discord server, which is a bunch of normies with normie jobs and normie lives. And then we play a bunch of video games and then I go to sleep. And then I get back online and I'm like, what are people talking about? Like, I get off. Like, what? Okay. Don't clip that. No. Don't clip that. I get offline. Okay. I get offline. Stop. All right, stop. But it's there was, I think, a very short period of time when I was online doing Twitch content where I was under the delusion that I could change everyone's mind, right? That it was possible. And I think like within 3 to 6 months, I realized that's not possible because these people don't want to change their mind. You can change the minds of people who don't want to change their mind if you are a positive impact on their life. So your friends and families and even your own audience who has different opinions than you can change those people's minds because they already have a positive association with you. So they're open to listening. even if they don't want to change their mind on something. If someone already doesn't like you and they don't want to change their mind, there's nothing you can do. So there's no point in trying. And I only fight winning battles. I don't fight losing battles, okay? All I do is win no matter what. And you don't win no matter what if you fight losing battles. That's silly. You got to fight the ones that you can win. Would it be wrong to say that you might be in the minority? I feel like gravitating towards negativity is almost always an aspect of being online that most people find inescapable some way or another. Oh, for sure. I weirdly, did you see the new Noah Samson video that you're in? Yeah. Yeah, I don't really watch so this is another thing. Like, I don't really watch the terminally online stuff either. Like, I know from what people have sent me that once you get to a certain size, I think in doing content, there are always going to be people that drama farm. I mean, I feel like every other week there's a new channel that pops up that makes like a hate video on Hassan. That is like, Hassan is the fakest champagne socialist ever. Every week it's like that. No, I know. No, Lomax. I know Samson's a leftist, of course. We're friends. Like, I believe that. He's just covering people whose opinions I don't respect. So I don't really care to watch it, right? Yeah, I saw again, from the clips that I saw, the person who Noah Samson was critiquing is like insane. Like very clearly mentally unwell. And I don't engage with people who are mentally unwell and need psychiatric help, right? Again, you listen to the people whose opinions that you respect, and you don't listen to the opinions of people who come off insane. And I think that that's a fair general rule, for staying normal. But I saw some of the clips, and I mean, Noah's videos are always bangers, so. So fast, no. So fast, no. Oh, gosh. Insane how I never get recommended Hassan hate, but the random Twitch streamers I follow every now and then voice their hatred of him seemingly for no reason because he has a house or whatever. Yeah, it's very weird. It's very weird. How insane some of those people are. I don't know. I don't know why. There's a lot of streamers. I think that it's they don't understand that someone could genuinely want to make the world a better place and also enjoy the success that has come with their Twitch audience. I think in people's brains, if you buy a nice house, there's no way you could ever care about other people. And for a lot of people, it's one or the other, because this is the problem with people. A lot of projection occurs with people. And there's a lot of Americans who've been brainwashed into thinking that you're just a temporarily embarrassed millionaire and you just got to keep going until you become a millionaire. And then you can fuck over everybody else. You can stop being the person getting fucked over and you can start being the person that fucks other people over. But it doesn't have to be that way. And so the idea that someone could enjoy life and have a nice house and a nice car and also vouch for your right to get a nice house and a nice car and have health care and have job benefits it's insane to think of. It's crazy to think about. Success only comes from treating people as consumers. I mean, it can. I don't think it's necessary, but so Hassan was talking about this yesterday, saying he gets a lot of hate because people feel shitty about their situation, so they take it out on others to feel better. 100%. I had a Swedish streamer hate him for being a socialist and having a house, and when I asked if socialism necessitates being poor, the guy stammered over his answer for no joke 5 minutes straight. At least have a baseline for your criticisms, Yeah, and I mean, I think a big part of it is that people come up with their criticisms or their positions based off of very strong feelings that they have. And then they realize, oh, this feeling is baseless. The example I like to think about is, or bring up is homophobia. especially regarding gay men, it's like culture dictates that that's really gross and icky. And obviously the AIDS epidemic didn't help. And there are a lot of people, especially people who used to be conservatives who are now liberals or leftists or whatever, who grew up in homophobic households that told them that this goes against God and this is gross. And if you see two men holding hands, it's fucking disgusting. And you should immediately think about them having sex for some weird reason, which is bizarre. And you should be grossed out. And when society tells you that, you will start to think that and start to feel that and start to believe that. And then you develop some level of homophobia. And you have this inherent disgust that shouldn't be there. That's something that society put in you. But the feeling is so real and it's so visceral that you assume I could never have such a real visceral feeling that was born from nothing, right? Right? This has to be real. I have to feel this way because this thing actually is gross, not because I'm insane and society taught me to be insane. Oh, no, this is insane. Disgust is one of the strongest emotions. I mean, yeah. And I mean, you can go back even further. I mean, like the people who go back like 30, 40, 50, 60 years to like people against what is it called? People that vouch exclusively for same-race marriage, that are against multiracial marriages or different racial marriages. Yeah, miscegenation. Those people. Now, some of them, they believe that because they're like, this is the right thing. And that's what I think. But a lot of them feel it viscerally. I mean, again, go back like 100 years, let's say. Or maybe 100 is too many. Let's just go back 60 years. I promise you, those people, the racism that they felt was like in their core. Not to say that those people don't exist today. They absolutely do. But the type of racism that like you shake the hand of someone who isn't white and you want to go wash your hand after, that's trained. That is something that is trained into you by other racist people. That is not a normal thing that should happen. And in normal people, you would shake someone's hand and be like, dude, I can't believe I'm shaking this guy's hand. And like COVID is still around. This is crazy. That should be the normal response. But there were, and probably are still many people that are like, I'm not going to touch you. You're ridden with diseases. You're not white, so obviously you have to be. And you have to understand when you feel that disgust on like this visceral level, it's very easy to justify your political positions because there's no way that such a strong human, hard-coded emotion could be wrong. Until you realize it totally can be. It totally can be wrong. And your brain is really dumb. It's both really smart and really stupid. So, yeah. I don't know how we got onto this, but I don't know. We got onto this somehow, but let me see if I can remember. Oh yeah, the guy saying that like this, I remember the Swedish streamer saying that like Hassan has a house, so he's not a socialist. You feel super strongly, or you feel really strongly about this position. And you're like, no, socialism is the fucking rich guy. And because you feel that way, you think there has to be a way to justify this feeling. Except that's not how you should come up with your positions. You should feel something and then double check that you're allowed to feel that thing, that it makes sense for you to feel that way. And then once you have actual evidence of that, then you can continue to feel that way. And if not, you should probably remove that from your brain. Also, confirmation bias. Yeah. Yeah. Also, perception does not equal reality. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. You should have heard the disgust in this guy's voice, too. He was so invested. He also thought Israel had a right to defend itself, by the way. Oh, no. No. Not the Israeli defenders. Oh, God. Oh, Christ. Oh, my God. Yeah. Yeah. I think also there's a lot of, weirdly enough, I think actually Hassan gets more male hate than like any other content creators. Like the per capita haters, I think are proportionally more male. And I think it's because it's a lot of people who are like mad and jealous or whatever, and they can't believe that someone who has good opinions and cares about other people and doesn't fit the like nice guys, finished last, whatever. More than Pokimane? Actually, more than Pokimane. Because I'm pretty sure the people who hate Pokimane, they don't even really care about hating Pokimane. They're just mad because I think they think that they're supposed to be. I think actually he gets the most male hate because it's a lot of jealous losers who don't understand that being a jealous loser and hating other people is cringe. So he actually gets treated, honestly, Hassan gets treated like a woman. Because people just say the same thing they say to all female streamers, which is you're only famous because you're hot. Which is so funny. It's just, oh man. Oh Christ. Anyways. I couldn't help myself. Okay. All right. Fuck man. I want to finish this interview, but it is like 13 more minutes, and you guys know in stream time that's like a billion more minutes. But I really want to watch the iDubbbz video. Just lock in. I can't lock in, bro. I can't do it. So maybe. Maybe. I thought it would be good. I've heard really good things about it. iDubbbz put out a video called 100% Women. And it just talks about the boxer, the Algerian boxer, Iman Khalif, who got called a man over and over and over and over again. Shall we? Men don't like Hassan because he's hot, but they don't realize that they would still get laid if their personality got put into Hassan. That they still wouldn't get laid if their personality got put into Hassan's body. Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Accurate. They don't understand that, like, your personality goes a very long way. And, like, you're going to, if you have stupid opinions, that shit's going to come out. Like, it's very hard to pretend to be somebody you're not. Unless you're a sociopath. It's very hard to pretend to be a good person, whatever that means, especially if you spend like an hour with someone on a date.